Morning, Jay.
Morning.
Here we are, a new week.
Yes.
Last week of October.
It's crazy to think November's already here.
I know, insane how quickly. I know we say it all the time, but it is insane how quickly this year went for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Given I'll say, finally have a little lull in the extraordinary events in life that have been happening with the family over the past years, with the passing of the generations as such, which normally keeps you moving. But again, here we are. It is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on that, kind of a recap. Let's see, fall break. The Castelli household was extremely busy and divided, but we'll call it kind of prosperous, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
Ange and Silas to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to pick you had of Silas kind of holding up the sphere
Epcot.
there at Epcot. That
Mm-hmm.
looked pretty good. Amazing how quickly he's growing up. Again, talking to time, right? Thinking end of this week he's 8.
Mm-hmm.
The heck. I mean, it is insane. So it's obviously a good trip for them.
Mm-hmm.
Had Rome's in Florida with a friend
Mm-hmm.
for a fall break.
Yeah.
Guess that went good. You had the Michigan little venture up there to give a speech.
Yeah, good. Not a speech, just a guest lecture at Michigan State
lecture.
for a couple classes, and then spoke to a social media marketing student group too, which is cool.
Good. Guess that went pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Leo, it was funny talking to him. It's kind of like his fall break was nice because he was the only one. He's by himself, so he gets a week
Mm-hmm.
kind of by himself
Mm-hmm.
rather than everybody else around as such. And of course, on Leo's end, we had him, wasn't the fall break week, but the start of it, his invite to that soccer combine.
Yeah.
Kind of top recognition for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So very good. So here we are with a lot of activity happening. So what I thought we'd do today, Jay, was we've talked about it on and off again, about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I've addressed obviously the kind of reorientation and redefinition of an individual transitioning into retirement, the Encore years. But I thought it might be interesting just to kind of back and forth a little bit on it. Is it really authenticity or just being the best version of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are they the same? Are they running in parallel? And to help us a little bit, I have a few quotes I've found to maybe help us get started here a little bit on this matter. And the first we've used before, it's from Tim Grover about in order to have what you really want, you must first be who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I found from the gentleman no longer in this world, but Kofi Annan. He was Secretary General of the UN. And this one was quite interesting. I like this one. It says, "To live is to choose, but to choose well, you must know who you are, what you stand for, and where you want to go, and why you want to get there." It's pretty involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got this one from Magic Johnson about celebrate the life you have, not the life you could have had.
Mm-hmm.
So again, all about, it seems through these 3 quotes, and there are so many others that we could talk to. I'll leave this next one after I make this statement. But the idea of identifying who you are
Mm-hmm.
is key. Just like in this certification course I'm taking for the retirement coach, I always spends a lot of time on identity and self-worth
Mm-hmm.
and discipline and reorientation. And when you think about all of that continuously, it kind of says like, okay, we revolve on this cycle of, I don't know how true it is. I guess there is some benefit to understanding that in order to be who you are, you really got to know kind of where you're going and what you're after.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of our question mark and little rebuttals back and forth here today. To get where we want to be, we got to know who we are. But how do we know who we are until we're experimenting, challenging ourselves? Kind of gets into your talks about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, the best version of yourself. We always have to be the best version of ourselves. because as we're growing, we're different people as we grow. So as long as we can be the best who we are at the time, or as we tell everybody, just do the best that you can. So when does this authenticity happen?
I don't think you can be the best version of yourself if you're not being authentic. This is the second time we recorded this because the last time the camera filled up the SD card. But I think it was. I think it happened on purpose.
I wasn't going to say anything about the technical difficulty.
I think it happened on purpose because it gave me more time to think about it. Because I know that there was enough space on that card. Like I deleted enough movies off. So this one has been reformatted, so there's nothing on it. But I think that almost happened by purpose, so I can think about it more. But I think if we say the best is like the ultimate goal, like the highest version of yourself, the best version of yourself, I don't think you can be the best version of yourself without being authentic, without being your true self. Now, that authentic self is going to evolve over time and your best version of yourself. But if you're not showing up as the truest version of yourself so that you know yourself to be, then you're not your best. You can be a good version of yourself, a better version of yourself. But I think the best you can't be best if you're not authentic. And I think that there is a scale, an ongoing scale of knowing who you are. I think some of the things you said is a little chicken before the egg, chicken or the egg, like which came first. Do you know who you are by knowing where you want to go, or do you know where you want to go because you know who you are? Like which one comes first? How do you know which one comes first? And I don't know. I think it's different for everybody. I think that for some people, you can't know where you want to go till you really know who you are. Or I also think that if you have a clear vision of where you want to go, then that vision can help you shape who you need to be able to go to that place. So I don't think that there is a chicken or the egg. I don't think that one has to happen before the other. I think those are two starting points for people. If you know who you are, then you can know where you want to go. But I do think if you know where you want to go, if you have this calling and you have this understanding that you're supposed to be this version of yourself, that you're supposed to be doing this into the world, and you believe that, and who you are today is not aligned with that, then that destination you can reverse engineer to figure out, okay, this is who I'm supposed to be. I would like to think that the who I'm supposed to be, the authentic self, comes first. I think that's the easiest way because I think it's being communicated to us all the time. We just don't necessarily pay attention. That's like the belief of, being created by a higher power for a purpose. That higher power wants you to know. It doesn't flat out give you a page saying this is your life's purpose, this is what you're supposed to do, but it gives you interests, it gives you talents, it gives you passions, it gives you things to give you clues to figure it out. So life is fun, the experimentation and those types of things. But I feel pretty confident in my belief that, going back to the original question, that to be your best version of yourself, you have to be authentic.
Okay.
Now, I'll throw one more little asterisk next to it. As I was thinking about the talk I gave to the kids at Michigan State, like trying to encourage them to find situations where they can be themselves as much as possible, because that allows you to be your best self, to do your best work. When you get to be yourself and you feel confident in your skin, you can do better work. If you aren't comfortable, you're walking on eggshells, you don't like the environment you're in, you can't be yourself, then you're not able to do as good of work. So, but also knowing that when you enter the workforce, you don't always have the clout or the ability to do everything the way you want to do it yourself. And you probably can't start a business, so you are your own boss. So then my encouragement was to find places, and in those places be the most authentic version of yourself within whatever parameters there might be. I would love for people to have no parameters, but I use clothing all the time as an example. And it sounds silly, but the way we dress is a way that we can express ourselves. And for some people, fashion means something. So for me, I don't love wearing suits. So going to an environment where I had to wear a suit every day would not be the best, but it wouldn't be horrible. So within that parameter, if I'm in this place where I have to wear a suit, that isn't my most authentic self, but within those constraints, how can I be a more authentic version of myself in a suit? Well, then let me wear ties. Let me wear handkerchiefs, or what are those called?
Yeah, I don't know what the fashion name of that is.
Oh shit, whatever. The handkerchiefs
Yeah,
that
I know what
goes
you're
in
talking
the
about. Yeah, I don't
pocket.
know. Yeah, yeah. I
Whatever
don't
they're
know.
called.
Yeah, I don't know what fashion.
But let me wear things that allow me to express myself a little bit within the constraints of I have to wear a suit. So okay, I'm not the most authentic version of myself at work, because if it was up to me, I wouldn't wear a suit. But within those constraints, I am authentic in that I have something that expresses, my creativity or my fashion sense through a tie or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I think, so I add that asterisk on there, that in that environment, I think you can still be the best version of yourself because you're being the most authentic version of yourself within some constraints. Goal would be no constraints. I don't know if we really have no constraints fully, but as few constraints as possible to allow you to be who you want to be, beyond just clothes, across the board.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Jay. And I think so much of this is a little philosophical as we examine it and try to, we're not trying in any of these discussions and talk to pinpoint and be the experts. I, like you, believe that every person has their own being, has their own drive to be whoever they want to be, their self-worth. Some are very content, just to be, if you would, who they are, meaning the drive is to just kind of take care of each day, do what they can, live within the means that they are given, not necessarily try to, and I hate using the term improve upon where they're at. They're just content that their life is good for whatever reason that is. Most of us, in many cases, are born because we don't have a choice of where we're born into, and I'm going to use that as a segue into the next quote I've saved for last. From one of my favorite characters.
There are schools of thoughts that we do.
Yeah.
I can't regret it's fun. I enjoy reading it. First off, sidebar, Pocket Square. It's driving me crazy. I had to look it up. I almost said that, but Pocket Square just, for whatever reason, when I went to go say it, didn't sound right.
Yeah.
I thought I had to, I thought part of it was what the actual type of cloth it was, but Pocket Square. But anyways, back to it, that there are books I've read that say our souls choose where we go. So it's kind of like the movie Soul. I don't know if you've seen Soul, where they jump down. But we choose this life for a reason, which sounds crazy because, why would somebody choose a life full of hardship?
Yeah.
But in these schools of thought, the whole purpose is it's to learn how to overcome. It's to learn how to deal with challenges so that your soul comes down, learns this lesson, but that we choose our parents. But there's so many different things like that. I like reading those things. It has nothing to do with this conversation, but I think sometimes sidebars are fun. But the other ones say that our souls are connected forever. But so that Ange and I, our souls have always been together through various lives. But sometimes I might be the wife and Ange might be the kid. But our souls, our family souls are always together, just sometimes in different dynamics. Just interesting. But I only say that because somebody might think that we do actually get to choose this life.
Yeah. And again, there's so much we don't know and understand. That's part of, as a human and we'll just keep saying growing up throughout our lives, because I still think we grow up even when we're in our 80s for various reasons, right? I mean, things just don't start to happen until they happen. And for some people that may not happen until they get to that point in life, and then you have a way of responding, and how you respond is contingent upon so many things. But I said but I think that's probably true because, some of that selection of choice, why, as we said, why would someone choose to be born into a family with a lot of, conflict, or to be born in an environment that's just a struggle? Well, it might be because there's a belief, if we understood that theory more, a belief that soul can survive that, right? Because they also say yeah, I don't know how much I believe this, but I have to say that they keep saying, well, you're only given as much as you can take. And in some ways, I think that's true, that there are certain people that can handle certain things that happen better than others can. And I think each of us could stop for a moment and close our eyes and think about that, what we've endured in life, what we've been able to overcome versus what maybe I couldn't as such. So I think all of this is intertwined. As I'm driving through this, it's about, especially now in this time of life, which we get back to the core of our session here and the encore phase, is the meaning for those of us here to re-examine who we are as individuals now that we don't have definitions driving us through our career or work. And we've talked about this in the past, where so much of our identity was driven by that work, we'll call it that work suit, not necessarily suit a suit, but the work suit of living that time of our life, that what that has to mean to us. And we've had discussions around that, but I think that defines our continued growth, that we do those things during that time because that's what we have to do, and that's a learning experience that forms more of our foundation. And now this phase of our time on earth, whatever that is in a physical way, because I also believe that, the after being physical, once we're out of this body, that I'm like you, the spirit continues to live and floats around and is there, as you said. And maybe that's just, I always say, maybe it's a Castelli thing, because that's how my dad was about when death occurs, that, the body is the body, but the soul continues to live, and all the rituals we have around the funeral are, what they are. And when the person's gone, they're not really gone. Their soul is always with you and stays with you. So I'm a firm believer of that, and that's kind of how my dad was. But I think this journey, especially this phase of life, is that reorientation. I'm not beginning to feel comfortable with saying it, but I'll just make the statement just for our future talks. The authenticity, and I know you say it's not a buzzword, but I'm going to stay on the side of it's kind of a buzzword that's used a lot today.
No, it is 100% is a buzzword, but it's the meaning and the importance of it is beyond the buzzwordiness of it.
True. And that's what I was going to say, is that it's really about being the best version of yourself. Because for me, the idea is, if you're being the best version of yourself, we know that that's going to evolve as you evolve. You have to give it your best, no matter what that is.
But you can't be your best if you're not true to yourself.
That's very true. Very true. But again, that being true to ourselves, I think, is the life lesson that we continue to refine as we grow and go through our life. Because it to me, it keeps shifting, right? It has to shift because of the different events. I'll just use that. The different events and moments in our life and what we're doing in a particular time. There's that balance for a period of time that you have to do depending on your life. As a given, it seems obvious, but I think it's a struggle that some people have, is that they talk about having a balance. How do I give what I need to give to my career? How do I need to give to my family? How do I need to give to myself? How you blend that all together. Likewise, I think shouldn't be taken any more than understanding how you give yourself to everybody around you that's important, and begin to learn that balance. Because it is a balance. Mm-hmm. You have to give to yourself. You've made this statement, and I think it's so true, that you have to first be good to yourself. Because when you're the best version of yourself, I think I'm paraphrasing you, but if you're the best version of yourself, then you can give all of what you can to everybody else and everything that you're doing. Mm-hmm. If you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not your best version, and you're not taking care of everybody or everything around you. Mm-hmm. I think that's very critical. I'll just call it a mindset to live with. Just like for us, the whole sporting metaphor, or living this athlete's life. If you're not developing yourself and being the best that you can, and you don't put in that extra hour of whatever drill or whatever moment, for you and I, and it's been on the court. If we don't put that extra time on the court and put up the extra 100 shots, we're not going to get that much better than the person next to us. Mm-hmm. And that I think is the critical lesson for us, is to just keep pushing to define that best version. Because if our best version comes from reorientation of who we are at a time. So at this point in my life, it's about reorienting myself to a new routine, to new definition. Even a whole new definition of the relationship Mom and I have has to occur. Mm-hmm. One thing we don't talk about, and it's kind of sensitive to talk about, but it is a driving factor in relationships once you get into this phase of life, because you really are at one another 24/7. Mm-hmm. And that's a different kind of relationship than when you're both engaged in your careers or working, or even in my case, where I spent a lot of my time working from home with the last couple of corporations I worked for. Even though I was home, I wasn't right in Mom's face all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd get up early, go down the hallway, go into the office, close the door, and, Mom didn't see me to the end of the day. Mm-hmm. That's just how I was. But now, even though I spend the time with you, do the few little projects that you have for me, and doing some other things, I'm more in her face, so to speak. So the relationship begins to change. You begin to have to adjust. Mom has to adjust a little bit. So it is a reorientation and a work in progress in this phase of life, just as it is throughout the phases in life. But other phases of life, you have the opportunity to escape. When you're together and you need to escape, you have the escapes, and you can calm it down a little bit when you need to. Just like in life, you have the opportunity to. But when you're working on your best version, I think that's when you learn more about yourself, right? And the challenges that come around are in that definition of self. Like I mentioned, doing the certification course, learning a lot about theories, and they talk about the sense-making theory, where our sense of self is what drives our decision-making. I don't know any more than that, because I'm not going to, I haven't spent the time to dive into it from a academic level. But
if you know who you are, you understand your authentic self, you understand your best self, then that helps you make the right decision. Basically, if you know who you are, then you can make decisions that are aligned with that version of yourself. The better you know yourself, the better your decisions will be. So if I know that these things are what's most important to me, then I'm going to make decisions that support that. If I know that being present for the boys is important for me, then I'm going to make decisions that don't take me away from home a whole bunch.
Right.
If I know that what's important to me is to make as much money as possible, then I'll make decisions that support that at the cost of other things. So that makes total sense to me. It's about making aligned decisions. And one thing I wanted to add is, with thinking of the idea of authenticity, like authenticity, your authentic self, it doesn't mean necessarily that you do everything that you want exactly the way you want it. Because to your point of the selflessness, like, there are other people in our lives that we have to kind of integrate and blend our authentic life and authentic self with. So when I think about your best self and authenticity, it also means that there are trade-offs that you have to make. And because you're doing something that isn't your top pick, it doesn't mean that you're inauthentic. It just means that at this point of time, the truest, I also like authentic and true, I think could be replaceable. But the truest choice for you, which would be the most authentic choice for you, is this decision. While it may not be your number one decision, because of other factors, it becomes the number one for right now. And then in that moment, that is the authentic choice, the authentic version of yourself. An example of this would be, I always use this as an example, but like living in California, living in Southern California, living in Encinitas, that if I could pick it and had nobody else to worry about, that would be it. But I have a family. They don't love California like I do. Being here has its benefits of being around family and going to a Colts game with their grandfather. So right now, even though California is where I want to live and I will live in the future, that is not, like, me living in Fishers is not me being unauthentic. I'm being the truest, best version of myself today, because all the other factors that are in my life today keep me here in Fishers. So not having everything you want the way you want it does not mean you're inauthentic. And some of those things are future version of yourself stuff. There will be an authentic version of myself, a best version of myself that lives in California, probably 11 years out plus. Yeah.
Then
So I share this. Hold on. Always I share this. I don't want people to think that like it's impossible to be the authentic version of myself, because if I was the most authentic version of myself, these things would be in my life. And that might be that right now is not the time for those things to be in your life. So because you don't have them and you're choosing not to have them for other things that are more important to today, does not mean you're being inauthentic. If anything, that's you are being authentic because you're choosing what's right for you today, based off of all of the circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's the balance of selflessness and being selfish as well.
I think I agree with that statement and that thought process. Is I don't identify with what you state about having to be in Southern California. That in and of itself makes you your most authentic self.
No, I say that because if I were to do an exercise, your ideal day, if money was no object and there were no restrictions, where would you live? I would live in Southern California. Doesn't mean I wouldn't come back here a lot, but I would live in
Right.
Southern California. That is where the weather, the sun, the environment, like that is more true to what I want. If I could have everything I wanted only my way. But that is not as important today as it is to have my family here, live the good life that we have. And there's other trade-offs that make, California not the right move right now. Like, I don't want to make the lifestyle sacrifices we would have to make to live in Southern California. I like to be able to have somebody say, hey, I got 4 Colts tickets. You want to go to the Colts game? Sure, here's $500 and go to a Colts game. If I'm in Southern California, that's not happening. So
Yeah.
there's other things other than just like family, but like that's not the authentic version of me today. I'm not being inauthentic. I just shared that example because I'm sure somebody watching or listening is going to be thinking, well, I would really like to be doing this, or I would really like to be located here, but my family keeps me here. So am I not being authentic? So like authentic doesn't mean have everything that you want. It just means understanding why and making the conscious choices, again, knowing yourself and making the decisions that are truest to you as much as possible. Knowing that you can't make every decision the way you want it to be. And that in itself doesn't mean inauthentic. To me, the inauthenticity is being somebody that you're not, compromising on your values, and doing it in ways that like there's no need for you to continue to do so. Like, you don't have to compromise your values. You can choose other things that would not make you compromise your values.
True.
And it's funny, like this conversation, like I still don't do a good job of explaining the authentic life.
Well, I don't think that you.
Because I'm still figuring out, like I'm still trying to find my way to like the short answer of what is the authentic life. And it's honestly why I believe that right now, like my platform, which I don't care about the size of the platform. I don't create this. I don't do my podcast. I don't write because of the size of the platform. But I think that the reason I don't have the rich role audience and experience, aside from the fact that doesn't fit my family life now, is I haven't perfected the message. And I think we talked about this before, and I've talked about it on my daily notes and other podcasts. Like I look at, I'm on a 10-year path towards the life that I'm trying to build, where I'm creating more content and have a bigger audience so I can help more people live more truer, authentic, best lives. But I couldn't do that today because if I were to go on a Rich Roll podcast or, a big podcast, I'm rambling about I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to explain authenticity and what that means to the authentic life and all that type of stuff. So like I know what it is and I can eventually get there, but I don't get there quickly and concisely, which is why these conversations are so good. Like Hopefully people figure things out. And also I hope in the rambling, like there's something in my ramble that triggers for somebody that if I didn't ramble, they wouldn't have got it. So
Right.
sometimes the ramble is beneficial.
Right. And that's where I was just going to jump in on that and agree with you there that I think it's the rambling on this particular subject matter and discussion that's key and important. I'm settling in on, I'll just say, a foundation that you can't define authentic life in a short definition other than being true to yourself.
When you can't define authentic life in a general, like everybody's authentic life is different.
Exactly.
So I can't say this is what an authentic life looks like.
Right.
Because there is no universal authentic life. It's to every individual, their authentic life consists of these types of things and more or less. Like that's part of it is, and maybe that's why it will always be a ramble, is that there
Right.
is no way to cleanly define it besides trying to get people to connect to feelings and ideas and thoughts that help them find it themselves. Like
Sure.
that's the thing, like with the work I want to do around it is so much of it is one-on-one. Like I have books that I'll write, but the way I think to really help somebody live their authentic life, other than planting seeds and helping them connect the dots themselves, is like the one-on-one guiding. It's like there's not a formula that I can give somebody. I say do these 3 things and it'll work. Like spirit, mind, body, and money. Like yeah, if you align those things, but then inside of that formula, there's infinite ways to align those things, to practice your mindfulness, to practice taking care of your body, to manage your money. Like there's no one right way. You as the individual have to figure it out. Going back to best self being the authentic, like your best self is defined by you.
Right. And it is at that, and that's, again, as we've said, and we're going to be repetitive with this statement, but that's just due to the fact that things will continue to evolve, and we live in a world where there's constant change and there's a definition of yourself at some point in time. And so that's why I'm saying I think I'm settling in on we have to understand how to be true to ourself in this phase of life that I am now in and what I'm focusing on and trying to do some good around is identifying that this is our time to reorient ourselves with ourself. Because up until this time, we've had more of a balance to strike. And some of that balance is we had to put a little bit more of us in our time in this part of that, whether that's being a father or a husband or a friend, a son, a grandson, whatever that might be throughout your course of life. But now some of those pieces go away, right? I mean, the idea of being a father to a son and daughter is different. The amount of time that I have to put in now is I still want to put in time, but it's very different how I put in time with Kristen and you as a son and daughter versus how it was. So this whole discussion, that's why I said for me, the identification is the key. The reorientation is more the process that you should want to continue, because that's the evolution that we must have, particularly in this point of life, where if you stop once you get to this phase, like many people do, and become bored with this phase of life. Again, as we've said, some people are very happy once they get to this phase of life of going, well, I don't have any real responsibilities other than still paying whatever bills I've got to pay and take care of myself. I just love not doing anything. And they're happy with that. And that's okay. Maybe, again, as we've said, that's their authentic life. They're being true to themselves because that's what they want.
I do
if
think
you're
though,
saying that to yourself just to appease yourself because you're afraid,
I think that's what it is.
you're afraid to making a choice, right? And that's where I wanted to go, is like you're afraid to take a risk. And if you don't take the risk, then you don't evolve. And so that's why I'm thinking, as we move throughout this, it's more about that it never should end. That's our authenticity, if you would, is that our whole life is seeking to be true to ourselves and be authentic, but it's not just one time. Until you get to a point where you truly define, this is how I want to be, and that's, if you would, that's the end of it. Right?
If that's the end of it, then I think that's the end of
right.
Everything.
Exactly.
Because I'm with you. That's the point,
right? Because at some point we have to come to that end. and again, for multiple reasons, right? There are health factors that settle in. There are age factors that come in to start to limit some things. And I'm not saying that just means you end it. It's just that some of that extra energy that you need eventually will catch up to us, and it will be sort of an end where you just physically you won't be able to do some of that.
Well, my thing was, I think that if you commit to no longer growing and just being like content, doesn't mean that you don't still grow. Content doesn't mean that you don't seek to learn new things. I think sometimes people think like, oh, I want to find contentment, which means that when I find contentment, I'm not worrying about growing or anything like this. I don't think that's the case. I think you can be content and still be looking to learn and grow.
Right.
I think, like, just from experience, looking at individuals who, when they hit the Encore years, quit being social and quit doing something and don't have something to like continue to grow with, they age a lot quicker.
Absolutely.
But if there's still this desire to learn and grow and be active and be a part of society and contribute in different ways, then those people are youthful way later in life. So I do think that if you're like, this is it, I'm not like, I'm just going to be happy and content paying the bills and not do anything else. And I think that our going back to the whole soul conversation and learning, like, I think we're always wanting to continue to learn. I think we're always wanting to grow. You talked about growth. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with using that term growth. Like, I think that's part of our purpose. And as long as the physical body allows our soul to have a vehicle to be in, that we want to keep on learning and growing. I just think that's our natural state. And it doesn't have to be like through work. It doesn't have to be through money generation. It could just be through, like, Uncle John taking college classes on an audit level in his 70s. Like, it was just this curiosity to continue to grow. Like, following your curiosity wherever that leads you, I think is important. There's a reason it's there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're designed to get to any specific age and then just stop.
Right. Now, I didn't mean for it to say stop in that matter. I just meant it to indicate that at some point, though, we will reach a moment of where that's what we have up for us is what's contained there, because we do have limitations.
Yeah.
And at some point, that limitation is going to happen, and it can happen sooner than we'd like for it to happen for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that too could just be a moment. So everything about this chase, I'm just saying, is similar to your favorite character, Santiago in the Alchemist, is that that journey to be and find your personal legend, and all those phases and people you come across, or episodes that happen to help shift you, things that occur to help reformat, your thought and where you want to go. And that's just a continuous cycle, and that's what I mean. It's just all about growth. Everything about us. And my point today on this discussion was about growth, but I did want to insert this one so we kind of begin to slowly wrap this up, is in addition to the quotes I used before, but here's one of my favorite characters was our friend Tony Soprano, from The Sopranos. And he, in one of the episodes, I don't remember, it was in the first season, I think, he had a statement that said, you're born into this shit. You are what you are. So the idea, again, about picking someone who believes the theory of your soul picks or whatever. In this case, it was, pretty complex, in the storyline of The Sopranos. So you have someone, Tony Soprano, who is born, whether he chose to be born into the, Soprano family or it just happened that way. But his statement is, when we become born and become a physical human, you are what you are, and you got to do what you got to do.
But I wonder,
in his case, of course, though, was a balance between trying to be the best, gangster he could be versus the complex person that he was, and trying to solve that. Because throughout the course of Soprano, there's the episodes with him seeking the help from a psychologist and trying to come at peace with some of this, where one moment he gives the order to whack somebody, and the next moment, as an episode showed, he's crying over the ducks that fly into his pool. So all I'm saying is, again, just I wanted to use that quote because it was kind of a very very fun quote to use
But
in
that
our
quote makes
discussion
me,
tag.
my quote makes me think though there's a challenge in that.
Right.
If it's you're born into this, you are who you are, then who are you? Like, is he saying that who you are in front of me right now is who you are and just deal with that? But what if that's like, okay, you were born into this world, but are you being who you're supposed to be?
Right.
I think that's the challenge, is that you are who you are. Well, figure out who you are. Yeah.
But that takes a journey.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's
and
what
I
we're
also don't
saying.
think you have to wait until Encore year. So if by any chance there's anybody not in the Encore years, younger, listening, like, it's still going to be a journey, but I feel like you don't, like, if my dad's generation, because of what they were taught and experienced and people talked about, if they had to wait until retirement to have the time and the awareness to go on, like, to actually pay attention on this journey, like, you don't have to wait. Like, you may not figure it out in your 30s, but maybe you're able to figure it out earlier if you're listening to this and be like, oh, like, that guy waited until he was in his 60s to connect all these dots. I can start looking to connect the dots now. And like, I haven't read my daily note today, and I think it might be on this, but I was listening to Stephen Pressfield. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff right now. And so he's the author of The War of Art and all these books around resistance, and he speaks my language, but he's also the author of The Legend of Bagger Vance. And I didn't know that for a long time. Like, I think I had read The War of Art maybe 5 years before I found out that Stephen Pressfield wrote, because he's written other books that have nothing to do with creating, like novels and things, but The Legend of Bagger Vance was one of them. So once I found that out, I bought The Legend of Bagger Vance, and I still haven't read it yet. I love the movie, which is really weird because it came out maybe when I was in middle school or high school.
Yeah.
I always loved the movie. The reason it's weird, it's about golf. I don't love golf. Has Will Smith in it, Matt Damon. But what I always loved about it was I would take some of the messaging and interpret to basketball. So Bagger Vance is this mystical caddy, and he talks about how everybody has their one unique swing, basically like your authentic swing. So I always took that to like my shot for basketball. So I took those messages and like the not thinking about playing and just getting in kind of into a state of flow. Well, I'm listening to Pressfield, and he's talking about how he hates the movie, that he had nothing to do with the movie. He loves the book, hates the movie because they left so much out of it. And then he goes in to talk about more about the book. So the book was Legend of Bagger Vance is based off the Bhagavad Gita. And I have to be honest, I haven't read the Bhagavad Gita yet, but I have it. And so he's going through and the reason I bring this up, and just kind of this goes back to connecting dots. So as I sit where I'm at today, the Bhagavad Gita, and I've read other books like it, but it's a spiritual book, and it is very like aligned with where I'm at today, which in high school I never would have imagined that this would be like the things I think about and the way I view life and all that. I would have never imagined that this is what I would grow up to be. But then I look back and I'm like, holy shit, like I love this movie that is based off of this book that I haven't read yet in high school that will be really aligned with who I am in my 40s. And then to find out that like a lot of the messaging isn't even in. So like basically Bagger Vance is basically like a representation of a like Jesus-like figure. Like God in the form of human is Bagger Vance. And Juno, the character, and then the real cool thing about it is like the names in the book. Like he was saying this was inspired by, I forget what exactly in World War, but like one of the names of the people, it may have even been a soldier, was like, it was a version of Juno. So that's the name of Matt Damon's character. So it's kind of cool to see that. But anyways, connecting the dots. I've read a book about like future versions. I read a book called Quantum Warrior. It's about quantum physics and quantum leaps and all that stuff. And that like in the book, the author talks about leaving signs for another version of yourself to pick up on. So like there's all these different timelines, kind of out there, but I enjoy those books. But I'm like, did a future version of myself somehow on a different experience plant Legend of Bagger Vance for me to like as a high schooler, to plant some of these thoughts and these views on life that would make way more sense in the future. It's almost like I stumbled across Bagger Vance on HBO in high school, loved the movie, but that wasn't coincidence. that was planted by a version of myself who knew I needed to start picking up on some of those things for a future version of myself to be ready. I know that sounds really out there, but like I can look through life and there's a lot of kind of like, I call them breadcrumbs, but sometimes some of the breadcrumbs look like they're planted. And that to me is like a plant. Like that was put there almost like in Interstellar. Like they in Interstellar plant this black hole or plant this wormhole right in the middle of the universe where it needs to be. Like who put that there? Like someone put The Legend of Bagger Vance on me in high school, and it took till 43 to realize the depth of that movie and that story and how it's aligned today. And it was almost like, we need you to start learning some of this stuff and picking up on some of this stuff so it becomes part of your core, even though you don't know it for 30 years down the road. It's cool.
It is. And we can probably, dig deeper into that or talk more of it for lots of points. But as I would just interject there, and then we'll start to wrap this up because of the time frame. And here you thought this was going to be the shortest.
Well, the short is best life, authentic life. You can't be best life without authentic life. That could have been the episode.
Yeah. But as I told you when we were doing the first shoot, I said, between you and me, something being short just ain't going to happen. But anyways, I think you're beginning to see this a little bit as well, I would venture to say, just as probably with Ange as well. But as a parent, just to your points you made, I think as a parent, you see that in your children. So when you say, well, you're surprised that who you were in high school is, where you are today is, I forget what you said, but you wouldn't see your high school version.
There's no way you saw high school me as being somebody who would be taking messages from bald eagles and interested in nature and thinking about.
I would disagree because you're right to specifically say, give me those examples where you would be taking messages from bald eagles or this version or that version of what you know. But seeing you and Kristen and watching you two evolve growing up in those steps, I saw both of you being kind of where you're at now. You're right, maybe not to this T.
I got you.
But both of you being individuals, and as crazy as it seems, you both are the core of both of you, Kristen and you, the core of both of you are individuals who are focused on improving people. I'll just leave it at that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you are who you are and what you're doing, and everybody knows who you are. If you're watching us for the first time, you check out Justin, you see where his world is going of having people get to this authentic life, living their best version. So that keys into a lot of what we talked about. Just as your sister, Kristen, her specialty with education, not just being a teacher, but specifically being an individual that works extremely well with young people, youth who struggle academically and have, challenges of learning, that she's always excelled in that, even though she's taught, elementary, but her focus has always been on those individuals with special attention that needs that and drawing the most out of them to where, they come in not being able to do very much and do well on the wonderful world of standardized testing in our academic world and school. And then these people that she draws the best out of them and they increase dramatically. Mm-hmm. She is a lot like you and you are a lot like her. And, so yeah, I saw that in both of you growing up. Just like, if we go to the athletic side of you, the idea of trying to draw that out of you to become the best version of yourself as a player rather than just being a player. One day you were going to do that, and it took quite a bit of time for you to get there, but that's okay. That's all the journey, right? So using all of that to say, I think basically what summarized us a little bit today is that I think you're right. I think there is a version of us somewhere out in the future that's continuing, and I use that for myself. There's a version of me out there that's been out there for a long time that's been pushing me hard to enjoy more of where I'm at a given time. I mean, I've always enjoyed where I was at in life. We've had this before. Growing up where we did and small still town and advancing to where I'm at, and I sit down every day and look about what I have, and I think I would have never envisioned having all of what we have had and what we're now doing. Yeah, there are versions of me who wanted it to be more that just didn't happen. But that's okay. So I think there's always something out there, whether that something is spiritual or the soul that, as you describe it, that's there and we choose it. All those that exist are there. But I think it's the idea of, as you said, don't wait to this point in life to enjoy all of that. Take what you've got and enjoy more of it as you continue to evolve, right? And don't be afraid to take the risk. So I think for me, the crux of it is that being true to yourself, being happy, and pushing yourself even in this phase of life to continue that growth is key to our continued efforts to be the best version of ourselves, which I think then translates into being authentic. Whatever that means, it means different things at different points in time, right? So I think we'll kind of stop there because we need to just close this instead of turning it into more rambling. So
I want to add one more thing. I want to ramble along on it, but one thing I was thinking about, like trying to put myself in the place of the listener. Like you say, like know, like I say, talk about like knowing who you are, know yourself. Like how will you know? And it's one of those things that like you'll know. Like deep down, if you're honest with yourself, you know where you're compromising, you know where you're not being true to yourself. Like you know that already, like you can feel it. And when you are being true to yourself, like you'll know when you're being like an authentic version of yourself. You know when you're there. And it's something that, again, I don't think anybody can tell you. The best that can happen is someone can help guide you to figure some things out, give you some exercises, give you some space, give you some feedback, but like just listen to you as you talk things out. But at the end of the day, it is a feeling, it is an internal knowing, and only you can feel it and only you can know it. But you will know it. Like you'll know. And you'll know when you're not being true to yourself. Yep. You'll know it. So if you're looking for how do you know, you got to look internal.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And it's funny because I think our closing remarks on each of our discussions here is very summarizing to this whole discussion and process is that, right, we never quit searching, never settle, and never give up seeking a greater purpose. We've been saying that from episode 1.
You've been trying to say it every episode. You always mess it up.
Well, that's because I want to keep trying to stay true, but I also don't want it to be so boring in a statement. But it does summarize what we've talked about. It's just never quit and never give up on yourself and keep seeking whatever that seeking is about, because it has to change, right? And each day it should change for different reasons and be different. If not, then we have settled, and then I think we then begin to decline if we do it intentionally. So I think it was a good time around, Jay. So again, always good to be with you, and
Agreed.
good talk today, I think. So let's just get out and enjoy a good day.
Sounds good.
And when you talk about fashion, just close on that. I think I'll jump in with the rest of the family. Is that beanie look's got to kind of stop now at this point in your life?
No, I'm not going to stop. Not until I see that the trends change.
Well, you're supposed to set the trend, right?
No, I don't set trends. I jump on them early, and by no means is the beanie an early trend. It's just not a trend people are in Indiana are necessarily comfortable doing. So, but you look at all the people who have style. Beanies are there, so I'm not gonna stop wearing them.
Okay.
That was always my cue. If people were making fun of what I wore, then I knew I was doing something right. Yeah. Because the making fun of it is they wish they had the courage and the confidence, maybe not to wear a beanie, but whatever their version of the beanie is. Yeah. So they're making fun of me because they can't wear the thing they want to wear because they're not confident enough.
Or that it really is funny.
Nope. My overalls.
Your bibs,
wear my overalls.
Your bibs, yeah. Yep. I was gonna close on that
I
too.
get compliments on those.
Close on
I get
that.
more compliments than I get made fun of. The only people who make fun of me are my family.
Well, because at least we're the only ones that are true enough to make fun of you. Yeah. The others are letting you pacify you by letting you be silly like that.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. Or should we go to the pink shirts you used to wear in high school?
Yeah. And then pink got big. I was wearing pink polos before Kanye was.
Yeah.
And then Kanye did it and got big. So, all right, let's
All
let it
right,
go.
man. All right, always good, man. Have
All
a good
right,
one.
you too.
All right.